We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. Welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I am Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. As usual on a Sunday morning, we'll do a little recap of some of the stakes. Had kind of a light stakes day yesterday, but we'll hit on some of the stakes. Also wanted to go back to last weekend and watch kind of a quirky race that's maybe worth paying attention to and following some of the runners going forward. We'll have that on a little bit later as well. We'll do a little handicapping later on. Then last segment, we'll be joined by our friend Frank Vespe. He does the website, theracingbiz.com, focusing on racing in the Mid-Atlantic region. A lot of it Maryland-based, obviously. And Maryland, over the past couple of weeks, has been in the news as putting forward a kind of a brand new format for racing or racing organization in the state of Maryland. Perhaps some things will have to, be taken care of on higher levels legally and whatnot for all of that to happen. But I thought we'd get Frank on to maybe explain where Maryland is right now, where they would like to go, what that means, how it will get there. And so we'll hit on that. But also over on the Racing Biz, Frank had a nice article last couple of days looking at trainers and jockeys to watch who are kind of winning in a way that kind of exceeds some of the expectations in regards to the odds. So I thought we'd hit on that and give you an idea, maybe some of the trainers and jockeys to pay a little bit of attention to if you're looking for some value at Laurel. All of that coming up on today's edition of Racing Across America. Don't forget, coming up this week, Martin Luther King Day on Monday, and that means a couple of the venues that normally, excuse me for leaning out, but I have my my race calendar here, and Monday. Santa Anita is in the mix on Monday. Fairgrounds in the mix on Monday. So again, Monday, a couple of venues that you normally wouldn't see will be in action. And just to give you a little preview of the upcoming week as far as promotions here at Capital OTB, don't forget throughout the month on Wednesdays, there's a 1% bonus for your player rewards. If you play either or both Tampa and Florida and hit the thresholds and whatnot, you can get a little bit of a bonus, a Florida bonus on Wednesdays throughout the month of January. Coming up Friday, it's a double promo day here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Friday, there'll be an exacta board and a match bet promo going on. So you can come by on Friday and have a little extra fun at the Clubhouse Racebook. And on Saturday, we have the $100 Trifecta Challenge, also Clubhouse Racebook. So again, Friday and Saturday, a couple of fun promotions happening here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. As always, you can stop by this afternoon. You can stop by anytime you'd like and enjoy the action here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Grab a little lunch at Friedella's. You can catch all the sports action on the sports screens at the far end. That will include, obviously, some playoff action today where it is happening with weather. The Buffalo game moved to tomorrow. Speaking of weather and postponements and whatnot, they had announced yesterday already, Oaklawn canceled for today. They were expecting overnight, maybe a little snow, some freezing temperatures. And at this time of year, over the years, even when Oaklawn opened a little bit later, going back, 2 or 3 years ago, in January, the early part of their meet, there could be those mornings where there would be the thaw and the freeze and the thaw that would affect the track a little bit. And that was kind of what they were anticipating for today. So seeing the weather coming, because if you watched yesterday, it looked like a nice sunny day. Did not look warm. People were bundled up a little bit, but it looked like a nice sunny day. But they were expecting some weather overnight down in Arkansas. And so subsequently, in anticipation of that, they canceled racing for today. So there will be no Oaklawn, but we, here on the network, we'll pull a little Laurel into the mix. Speaking of Frank Vespe, and that's why I say it'd be fun and interesting to go over that column looking at trainers and jockeys exceeding expectations, and maybe you can use a couple of them this afternoon as we'll show some Laurel. We'll also obviously have some Aqueduct, some Gulfstream, and some Tampa in the mix for Sunday afternoon right here on the network, and you can play via capitalotbbet.com. All right, let's jump in and look at some of the action from yesterday. As I say, it was a little bit light, and you had the Busanda yesterday at Aqueduct, $100,000 for 3-year-old fillies going 9 furlongs. Only a field of 5, but it was a nice performance in here. Probably one to watch going forward on the 3-year-old filly side of things. It will be Jin Jin, the number 1 horse, getting it done. Second choice at 5-2. Running third was the 4-5 favorite, Shimmering Allure, the number 2 horse. Follow-up article in the Racing Forum said, for Jin Jin to get it done, Shimmering Allure was probably going to have to not put in a best effort, and she doesn't. You can see the number 2, Shimmering Allure, is kind of fighting to get up for third, and there's no threat to the winner. Jin Jin is kind of battling a little bit with Princess Mayfair, who came in, and I thought looked very eligible. Princess Mayfair escaped as the 10-1 longest price on the board, but is right up there contending and comes back a little bit late, even not in a way where you were threatened if you had Jin Jin, but Jin Jin gets it done. Chart margin ends up to be a length, $7.60. And this horse had shown some talent already. So as I say, maybe one to watch. Now that the time wasn't fast, I did not see the buyer. Be interested to see. I don't know if that's going to knock it out of the park. Last week, Brad Cox had drum roll, please, winning the Jerome on the boys' 3-year-old side of things. And I said, lightly raced, we'll still have to see. But I'm thinking probably not Triple Crown Trail necessarily, but they'll have a nice little 3-year-old to kind of pick some stake spots. That may be the case with Jin Jin as well. I mean, what we've seen so far has been okay. A couple of nice tries to start the career. Debuted at Horseshoe Indy and ran second. Broke the maiden at Churchill in the second start of the career. And then they went and tried the Rags to Riches. Ran a good second there. Disappointed in the Goldenrod, but had some trouble in that race. Now they come up to New York and get it done. Put a little stakes win on the resume, and only the 5th career start. Brad Cox subsequently said the Gazelle is likely. That's not till April. I'm going to be interested to see. But that, certainly, the Gazelle is a little more of a race you're plugging your horse into if you're thinking, maybe we'll try the Kentucky Oaks. And as I say, I'm not quite sure. We'll see where they do wind up with Jin Jin. But again, what we've seen so far of the career, I think, says they have a nice little 3-year-old filly. I'm not sure it'll be out in the upper echelon going forward, but it's not defined one way or the other necessarily with only the 5 starts under the belt. Shimmering Allure, again, a little bit disappointing in there. It was, however, an off track. It was muddy and sealed. That said, she had run okay on a muddy and sealed track in the Demoiselle prior, so the Ken McPeak runner just a little bit disappointing going forward. She already has a pretty nice resume, though, and she also, will she be in the upper echelon of 3-year-old fillies? I don't know, but she'll certainly bounce around and be a contender. She won the Tempted 2 starts back against Shimmering Allure, the favorite, the beaten favorite. And Princess Mayfair, as I said, kind of escaped. The horse that ran a good second in there escaped at 10-1 as the longest price in the field of 5. Came down from a short, abbreviated 3-start career as a 2-year-old last year at Woodbine, and I thought had some talent, seemed to be moving in the right direction. Betting public let that one escape, but she'll be fun to watch too. And being more lately raced and that being the first start on the dirt, she might have some more upside potential as well. So Again, I'm not sure whether we have Kentucky Oaks or Alabama contenders necessarily, but I think we have some 3-year-old fillies that you would like to own, and we'll wind up heading into stakes company throughout the year and probably have some level of success. All right, let's move on to Tampa Bay Downs. We talked with Ren Carruthers yesterday about the nice card down there. 3 nice stakes on the Saturday card down at Tampa Bay Downs, and that kicked off with the Wayward Lass. These are fillies and mares going a mile and a 16th. I like Dream Concert. Dream Concert was 6-1 on the morning line for Kathleen O'Connell, having come off a second-place finish in the City of Ocala Stakes back in early December. But from 6-1, became the 8-5 favorite. I was a little surprised the horse was the favorite, but after the betting was concluded and the gates opened, Dream Concert was the 8-5 favorite. But the winner, a horse I had down at the bottom of my mix, was number 1, Opus 42. Came in off a decent little second-place finish at Laurel in the 38-go stakes back in earliest part of November. And it's the one horse, and you can see coming here on the outside as they were all right there at about the 8th pole. Anybody could have picked it up. But Opus 41 makes a nice late run under Dan Santino to get the stakes victory. This is a horse that had a stakes victory as well earlier on the resume last year, right here, the Gasparilla. So had a little bit of a record over the surface, was the 7-5 morning line favorite. So the morning line odds maker got it right. But the betting public let this one get away as the third choice. $8.40, nice late run. Dream Concert, again, who I like, clearly second there by half a length. And then Magical Loot ran third. Ren Carruthers liked Magical Loot, and that one got away at, about 7-2. And ran well as, again, they were all right there at the 8th pole, and then got things kind of separated out a little bit with Opus 42. Nice late run. But you can make the argument, a little bit of a horse for a course for Opus run. 4th start at Tampa, including the win in the Gasparilla last year. 3 wins in 4 starts at Tampa. And that's in a career with 4 wins overall. So 3 of the 4 wins in the career overall are at Tampa. So again, a little bit of a horse for a course angle, perhaps, if that one comes back later in the meet. And I don't think that's out of the question. Speaking of the Gasparilla, which Opus 42 won last year for 3-year-old fillies, and it was the next race on the card. So this year's version, I liked another Kathleen O'Connell runner, Gervin's Princess, the number 5, coming out of a nice win in an optional claim or starter allowance off a little bit of a layoff right here at Tampa. I thought that win had her set up very well. Gervin's Princess goes off at 5-2 and has a little trouble at the break. There's a few of them that kind of jammed up in the middle of the gate coming out, and she was one of them, and all 3 of them wound up at the back of the pack. So the start seemed to hurt those horses. But Mystic Lake, and again, we talked with Ren Carruthers yesterday, and she thought Mystic Lake, and I couldn't really argue, would kind of shoot out and take them all the way around. I was a little concerned about the surface because Mystic Lake had 3 starts up at Woodbine on the synthetic, but there was the nice workout at Palm Meadows leading into this, and obviously the dirt was no problem as Mystic Lake does take them all the way around. But a nice late run from Gorgeous Girl, and Ren Carruthers had kind of mentioned her as well. Greg Sacco, runner who in the previous start had faced the boys right here at Tampa and ran a good third to get fit for the race. So that one completes the exacta. And, you turned the $3.60 winner into $11 and change in the exacta if you did like Gorgeous Girl. And Gorgeous Girl was the third choice at 4-1. Completing the try, though, Corinth. You can see there the 8 horse, who's right in the mix, 87-1. And the trifecta, again, the exacta was $11.80. The trifecta, I'm going to have to do my math here. The exacta for $2 was $11.80. The trifecta was almost $210 So the $87 horse, if you had it in the try, you wound up getting a lot of value out of the 87 to 1 shot, running third in there as the as triple jumped up very, very nicely there in the Gasparilla. But it was Mystic Lake getting it done for Saffie Joseph. And again, it was kind of funny career for Saffie Joseph, Florida-based horse that they had popped up and spent some time end of summer and early fall up at Woodbine. Clearly, they felt that the synthetic surface would play into her strengths. Her debut effort on the dirt at Gulfstream was not good, but it was the debut effort. And a lot of times that's you going out, you're getting practice, and they can improve nicely. But then off of that, they elected to go to the synthetic, and she ran very well up at Woodbine, including placing in a couple of stakes. But as I say, I had her in the second spot yesterday, just a little bit curious about the dirt. There was the Palmetto's workout, though, that seemed to validate she would be okay, and she was yesterday. So we'll see where Saffie goes. Again, with the synthetic form, he's got some options, which you would think might play over into turf as well. So he might have a nice little 3-year-old filly with plenty of options ahead. Mystic Lake for Saffie Joseph. We'll keep our eyes on that one. And finally, stakes action yesterday. It was the 3-year-old boys. And this one was interesting, not necessarily from a betting perspective, and sometimes you get these races, but just to see and get the barometer, okay, how good is this horse? Bookham Dano goes out off at 10 cents to the dollar, 3-2 on the morning line, and took plenty of action out of that. Bookham Dano had a 3-race win streak snapped last time in the Nashua and ran a close-up second. 2 starts before that had won the Futurity. 3 starts back had won the Smoke Glacken at Monmouth. So in a 4-race career before yesterday, 2 stakes wins and a second place in a stake, plus the maiden-breaking win in debut. So 3 for 4 with a second place finish. Came in yesterday and at 10 cents to the dollar, lives up to the price and wins very nicely. The chart margin here is going to be over 12 lengths. It gets close behind, but at 10 cents to the dollar, Bookham Dano does get it done in here. I can't keep talking about this. You can start anytime. Thank you. Bookham Dano will pull away here in the stretch, and as I say, win by about 12 lengths. Again, I did not see the buyer here, but it is not a betting race, obviously, at $2.20 that is going to get your juices flowing. But the 10 lengths, and as I said, as I led into this yesterday, the connection said a good race here, and we go to the Saudi Derby. So they're headed over to Saudi Arabia, and off of this, looks very interesting. Now, Bookham Dano, so far, 5.5 furlongs, 6 furlongs, 6 furlongs, second previously, a close-up second in the 1 mile Nashua. Yesterday, it was 7 furlongs. So this may be one of those that they've kind of already decided, more of a sprint type than 1.25 miles in the Kentucky Derby. We'll see what they do, but that Saudi Derby, it's $1.5 million, and it's a 1-turn mile. So I think it's going to be, right in the wheelhouse. And again, we'll see. This was the game plan that came out in the preview article in the Racing Form a couple of days, 2-3 days ago, that the Saudi Derby was on their radar. And you would think if they were thinking about it, and they had a nice big crowd in the winner's circle. It's owned by Atlantic Six Racing, which I'm assuming is some kind of partnership because there was a big group in there. And if you have a big group and you wind up with a nice horse like this, and you can go take your shot for $1.5 million, I would think it's very much a possibility. So he may be interesting to watch on that big day of racing over in Saudi Arabia coming up. So there was your action at Tampa yesterday. And as I say, it was a little bit light, but there was also a new stake on the schedule at Oaklawn. Oaklawn Park ran the Mockingbird for the first time. And this one, I did read the Mockingbird is the state bird of Arkansas. That was part of the article. This one at 5-1, it's Midshipman's Dance, the number 1 horse, getting it done to go 2 for 2 for Robertina Diodoro. So kind of escaped at a little bit of a price, having won for a high percentage guy. Steve Asmussen had Sharp Tune in here, the number 2 horse. That was the 9-5 favorite, the number 2, who you can see is right there and looking pretty good. But can we hold off the horse on the inside? Can we hold off the horse on the outside? Question for both. No. On the inside, it's Midshipman's Dance. And on the outside, it was Tanya Showers, who was the second choice at 7-2. Favorite runs third in there for Steve Asmussen, but the winner, Midshipman's Dance. And after the race, Robertina Diodoro, the trainer, said, tough spot off the maiden breaker to step into a little stakes company. And, these are all lightly raced, but there were some salty performers in there. And so they said, it was kind of a last-minute decision. She's doing well. We took our shot. And you got to love it that she came up the rail. I mean, that's for a lightly raced filly. That's a nice little move to come up the rail like that. Little gutsy move, and chart margin winds up to be half a length. So we'll keep our eyes again. Some nice 3-year-old fillies running yesterday on kind of a light stakes day, but I think all of them have the potential to move forward and be players at the top of the game. I'm not sure we're going to get that from all of them. I think they'll all move forward to be productive on, in stakes quality, but maybe, those second tier of stakes. But we'll see. Again, being lightly raced, Midshipman's Dance, I think, has plenty of potential going forward. So, again, some nice horses to watch in the future. And I said I wanted to also look at one more race going back to last week, literally a week ago, last Sunday, because it triggered some buzz, justifiably, some buzz on Twitter and beyond. It was just a little state-bred maiden special event down at Aqueduct, 6.5 furlongs. But Crimson Light was a debut runner from Todd Pletcher by City of Light. They paid well over $250,000 for this horse, summer of 2022, right up here at Saratoga. Had some nice workouts underneath. City of Light can get the horses ready early on in the career. Todd Pletcher can certainly get a firster to win. So the horse goes off as the even money favorite. We're going to watch the entire race, and I want you to pay attention. Crimson Light is the number 1 horse and does a kind of a bucking bronco show out of the gate and goes way back. And if you had Crimson Light at even money, it was they're off, you lose. But as they say, this race got a little buzz going. So let's take a look. Okay, you can fire up the replay there and pay attention to the 1 horse coming out of the gate here, Crimson Light. And whoa, hello. And you have to think, I'm done. So you're tearing up your ticket probably. We'll watch him come around the turn here. And as they come out of the turn and come into the stretch, Crimson Light, again, you can see not in the picture. Not only isn't the horse in the picture, the chiclet isn't on the screen. And as they turn into the lane, that's pretty much still going to be the case with Crimson Light way back, kind of chasing the field. But then in the stretch, way to the outside, is going to come Crimson Light under Kendrick Carmouche again for Todd Pletcher. You see, still not in the picture. And you're still, if you have Crimson Light, now the chiclet shows up, now the horse shows up, Kendrick Carmouche goes way out. He's middle of the track. He's disappeared from the picture again, but you can see the chiclet, and it's going to take him a while to show up. Chris Griffin is, giving the call and kind of, hey, well, look at this. Now he shows up in the picture again. No, he's not going to win. Is he? Is he as the favorite? And Yes, he gets it done here. Chart margin winds up to be ahead. As I say, it was a remarkable performance. And I said when I was on the air, and a lot of people on Twitter eventually said the same thing. It's hard to judge this kind of performance. Over the years, we've seen performances like this, and it can go either way. This may be a very special horse, or it may just be this field was horrible. And so it was still an eye-popping, fun performance, but it's hard to judge. And that's what's going to make this kind of fun. Now, I also said I'm going to be very interested to see the number coming out of this. And sure enough, the number was a 57. So the buyer does not kind of validate this as anything remarkable in that way, but it was clearly remarkable visually and just, to be totally out of it the way this horse was and still get up to win. Incredible. So as I say, it's going to be fun to watch now. When Crimson Light shows up next, what will he do and what will the betting public do? Because the betting public, everybody's going to, this horse isn't going to sneak by. You're going to see that on the page, the big come from behind victory. This horse created enough buzz that they'll be buzzed then. But people also see that 57 buyer, and bettors like to focus on the buyers. So, but it's also going to be very interesting to see if in the meantime some of the horses behind Crimson Light come back. What will they do in their next start? And that's going to help define, is he something special or was this just a really weak field? It's going to be fun to watch going forward. Again, Crimson Light in particular, but the rest of the field. And we'll kind of keep our eyes on that as these horses do show up, because again, whether this horse turns out to be something or not, that was just a crazy special performance, certainly from Crimson Light last Sunday. So I thought we did have to show it for people who might have missed it. All right, we'll take a break. Again, a few minutes down the road, we'll be joined by Frank Vespe from the Racing Biz. We'll get a little update on the situation in Maryland and more. But right after we come back from the break, we'll do a little handicapping for this Sunday afternoon. Just a quick look at some of the, maybe we'll take a look at one of the pick fours for a little bit later on today. All of that when Racing Across America continues. Stay tuned.
And they're off in the Pegasus World Cup. They're off in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And they're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. Forte wins. White Aborio almost home.
And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby.
Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. I just pulled up the scratches and changes page from Tampa. And the scratches typically in most of the tracks here on the East Coast anyway don't come up until about 11 a.m. So there are a couple of early scratches. But more notably, I was just checking to see what they had listed for turf. And they're listing the turf as good. So they're on the turf, it seems like today at Tampa. But I'm just looking. I was going to look at the late pick four. It may not affect the late pick four one way or the other, and it doesn't. They're all dirt races. So And again, I'll take a look at this late pick 4 at Tampa this afternoon. It'll be one of the tracks I'm looking at on television when we come back for OTB Live, and an hour and a half or so as well. Not putting a ticket together because I do want to wait for scratches to be a little more official and complete, but just some ideas. Late pick 4 at Tampa. That kicks off in the 6th race today. Optional claimer, non-winners of 1, mile and 40. I have it 7, 1, 3, and 6. Fulminio on top comes in for Arnaud Delacour after having shown some promise so far in the career. Kind of interesting, though. I wasn't quite sure what to do with this one, given that broke the maiden on the turf at Colonial, then comes up to Aqueduct and runs second in the Pilgrim. And off of that, they try the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, where the horse disappointed. But the debut effort at Delaware was on the dirt, and it was okay. It's dirt this afternoon, but that this horse had run 3 kind of promising races on the turf, and they come to the dirt. Again, I found it intriguing, and I think this horse with the talent probably will take action. So if I'm playing a pick 4, I'm not going to lean solely on this horse, and B, I'm probably rooting for one of the others to kick things off with more value. But the talent just may have the edge there. We'll see. If you do want an alternative, though, Crazy Mason. This is another horse coming out of some stakes tries and some okay stakes tries. Ran second in the inaugural back on December 2nd. And I think becomes a player in with this bunch. And Ninja Star, another one coming off some turf efforts. This one has a dirt start on the resume that isn't much, but it was a little restricted stakes race. Again, it's a Kevin Rice runner. There are a couple of workouts underneath that say the dirt may be okay. So I'll put that one in the mix as well. Secret Lover comes over from Gulfstream. This one's solely with dirt form, including some nice stakes tries. So this one could be a player as well. I'd probably spread and tend to use all of those because the question marks that with the turf meant horses, again, they could be mitigated because they may have enough talent that the surface switch isn't going to be a problem, but it is a question. So again, for me, in the 6th, 7, 1, 3, and 6. In the 7th race, I have a 2, 7, 4, and 8. I'm going to put Passage of Lines on top. Comes in good form for Jamie Ness. Jamie Ness back down at Tampa this season and off to a decent little start. This horse, part of that, having won here at Tampa 2 back, ran second last time as the 3-5 favorite. I like the cutback today as well. Last couple of starts, 2 turns, goes to 1 turn, 7 furlongs today. Off a couple of nice efforts. I think the cutback will be beneficial. Number 7, Flipping Fish in the 2nd spot. Similar scenario to the top pick. Last couple of starts right here at Tampa have been very good. They've been against fairly similar company and good form here at Tampa. Similar scenarios. Seems to be one to pay attention to today. And then Exacting. Another one that I think is going to benefit from the cutback. Tried a mile and a 16th last time and kind of faltered. The race just before that at this 7 furlongs was better, though. So for me, I might be tempted, 2, 7, 4, and 8, might be tempted to stick with the 2 and the 7, maybe throw the 4 in as well. 8th race at Tampa this afternoon, maiden claimers going 6.5 furlongs, 9, 10, 8, and 7. Number 9 goes out for Kathleen O'Connell. I mentioned I liked a couple of her horses in the stakes yesterday. I mentioned it with Ren Carruthers yesterday. She is the leading trainer by kind of a wide margin. It's early in the meet, relatively early in the meet down at Tampa, but she had a nice little edge on, there were 2 or 3 were tied in second, but she had a nice little edge. So leading trainer Antonio Gallardo on board, but this one has not been seen since August. That's the knock. Comes over, however, from Gulfstream. Been working over here at Tampa since late December and comes back at, a tag that's maybe half a step down from where we saw the horse last time. Not the kind of a drop that really has you concerned. I'm more concerned with the layoff. But I think this horse, looking at this particular field, maybe has a little bit of an edge. She's So Vocal, going out for Rohan Creighton. Maybe a little bit interesting as a fresh face in a field where I think you can maybe go in that direction, because those that have run, they are not much, frankly. So first time starter, She's So Vocal, and Awesome Valentine in the third spot. Another one comes over from Gulf, like the top pick, very much like the top pick, over from Gulfstream, but facing better, but hasn't been seen since July. So the layoff is the concern here. But this is the kind that maybe they come back off a little bit of a layoff like this, a little bit improved. And if we do get just a little bit of improvement, this horse could have an edge in with this bunch. Sassy But Precious, the 7 I have at the bottom of my mix is the morning line favorite. 8 tries, though, hasn't gotten it done yet. So, and this is one that takes a class drop that's a little more concerning and hasn't been seen since May. So you toss in the layoff with a big drop. Now I'm a little bit more concerned. So again, this is a rough race to have much confidence in. The 8th, I went 9, 10, 8, and 7. And finally, closing out that late pick 4 at Tampa this afternoon, 9, 10, 2, and 4 in the 9th. I'm going to use Truly Mischief on top. Nice little win last time for an $8,000 N2 tag. They move up the condition, claimed out of that race. They move up to N3L off the win. But I think, sometimes the next condition's a little bit of an obstacle. This horse, though, dropped to get that win last time and then kind of dominated. I don't think this is going to be any obstacle. Looks logical. Chromed Impulse in the second spot off a near miss in a similar race last time. Very playable and coming over from Gulfstream. But again, off a big layoff is Majestic Pharaoh. Won when last seen at the bottom over at Gulfstream. The numbers match this horse up, but at these bottomish levels, sometimes they need to start. Selecto could be a player. If you go a little further down the page, the numbers are okay, but comes back for a reduced rate and on the dirt, having only raced on the turf so far. Sammy Camacho was attracted to ride, though, and that attracted my attention a little bit. In the 9th and final at Tampa, 9, 10, 2, and 4. All right, there's a quick look at some of the pick 4 action coming up a little bit later on at Tampa Bay Downs. In the meantime, we will take a break. When we come back, our friend Frank Vespe will join us. TheRacingBiz.com, good coverage of racing in the Mid-Atlantic, and Frank's had a couple of nice articles about the plan at Maryland. He also covered it for the Blood Horse within the last week or so. So I thought we'd get a little update on what's going on in Maryland as far as Pimlico and Laurel in the future. And then Frank wrote a nice column as well, looking at some of the trainers and jockeys here in this Laurel meet who are maybe exceeding expectations a little bit in regard to the price, their horses, the odds and whatnot. So I thought we'd touch on that as well. And again, we will, with Oaklawn on the sidelines today, we'll pull a little Laurel into the mix for this afternoon. So maybe it'll give you a couple of hints. All of that when Racing Across America continues. Stay tuned.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Papa. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, joined now by our friend Frank Vespe. You can read his work at theracingbiz.com. Also, within the past week and a half or so, had a nice article in the Blood Horse covering the situation in Maryland, and that's why I wanted to reach out to Frank, because Maryland kind of, in the whole time I've been a racing fan, and certainly going back much, much longer than that, Maryland has been a linchpin in the American racing scene. And so over the past, 10 years or so, certainly there has been some flux there, and it looks like we're back in that situation. So I thought we'd get an update on what's happening in Maryland. Frank, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good to be with you today.
Did I put that right? We're back in a little situation of flux?
We're always in a little situation of flux in Maryland is what it feels like. But basically, the story now is this racetrack operating authority, which was created by the legislature in 2023, released its recommendations for the future, I guess last week now, January 5th. And in that they said, one, we should consolidate down to a single racetrack, and that should be Pimlico. And two, we should scrap the current model of ownership, which is a private company. The Stronach Group owns the tracks and tries to make money off that. And we should go to an ownership model that's more like NYRA, where the state owns the racetrack and a nonprofit manages the racetrack sort of on behalf of the state. And so that's what they've recommended. There are a whole lot of steps from here to there, so we'll have to see how this all plays out. But that, in theory, that's what the future looks like here.
Yeah, and I recommend for people, you'll explain it here, but for more info, you can go check your articles. In one of the articles I was reading, you said, there's still a lot of questions, and you quoted the governor, and I'm just pulling a little bit of the quote. This is the framework of an agreement in principle. So it's a framework. It's just the principle. It's going to be interesting to see how this all works out. You are down there and at the tracks regularly. I'm wondering, are you getting some sense of a general consensus? I mean, do people think this is the way forward? Is there a positive mentality about this potential plan?
I think I would characterize what I'm hearing as kind of a wait and see. 3 years ago, they came up, I guess it was almost 4 years ago now, they came up with what became the Racing and Community Development Act, which was going to revitalize Pimlico and Laurel. And that at the time, people in the industry said, this is our triple crown. That was one of the quotes. And that blew up. And, that really came to nothing. And so I think a lot of people kind of want to see how this plays out before they, get on board and start saying this is the future. And it's a complicated situation because, I mentioned this in the article you cited about the questions and answers, if you were given $400 million and a clean slate and just said, do what you think is best for Maryland racing, you wouldn't consolidate Pimlico because Pimlico is too small. It doesn't have the sort of geographic footprint isn't large enough to have the entire horse population that you need on the grounds. The turf course is half as wide as Laurel's is, so you won't be able to run as much turf, which probably will be bad for handle. You wouldn't necessarily go to Laurel because that's got a lot of its own challenges, but you'd be looking for a place where you could replicate that sort of turf course where you could have the entire horse population on the ground. So you're already starting from kind of a compromised place where the starting assumptions were this is the amount of money we have, Pimlico's got to survive. And so I think there are a lot of questions. People want to see how this goes forward before they give it a thumbs up.
Well, you've kind of answered it, and I had it right here on my page, Pimlico versus Laurel, and you just kind of addressed that a little bit, but maybe a little more in depth, because was my big question. I have visited Laurel, which I thought, and this was quite a while ago, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice facility. I think when people watch on television, watch on our network, Again, the nice turf course, great turf racing, as you say in your article, 142 feet wide. You can have, I think you said, 7 lanes of racing. So that's great. And so my question, again, not ever having visited Pimlico, but having talked to people who have been there and have read about it, if we're going to go to one track, why did it wind up that they decided it was Pimlico? Was that kind of a political decision? Or it seems like if you are going between one or the other, Laurel seemed like the far more obvious selection.
You hit on it exactly, Seth. It's a political decision. So about 5, maybe 6 years ago, the Stronach Group had put forward this proposal to make Laurel a quote-unquote super track. You may remember chatter about the super track at Laurel. And they needed bonding authority from the state to do that. And sources close to this told me that it was all teed up, and then the Stronach Group hired a guy to kind of be their face in Annapolis who, let's just say, was spectacularly ill-suited to that job. And he infuriated everyone. And basically, when the city's legislative delegation figured out that they were going to put all this money into Laurel and they were kind of leaving the question of Pimlico to another day, they lost their minds. They were able to get support from the Legislative Black Caucus, legislators from PG County and elsewhere, and they were able to stop it. And that kind of, since then, all the kind of political momentum in Maryland for the future of racing has been Pimlico. Pimlico's got to survive. The state's not going to put this kind of money into racing if Pimlico doesn't survive. So it is a political decision. You've got a governor from Baltimore, a Senate president from Baltimore, House Speaker from Baltimore County. Pimlico survives. For political reasons, it's got to be Pimlico. And so if it's got to be Pimlico, then it also has to be a training center someplace else to handle the overflow horse population.
Yeah, and that to me is also a kind of a big question or obstacle. You quoted figures, what, 280 million will go into this. And so I have no question that they'll wind up with a really nice and maybe modern facility. But again, as you said, the geographic footprint, they can't house enough horses, so they're going to have a training facility that will take care of that, or maybe more than one. But not only that, as I understand it, they can't really house potential backstretch workers either. So I think there are some big obstacles that still have to be answered and overcome.
No, that's exactly right. And at Pimlico, the thought is they'll be able to house workers in the surrounding neighborhood, in the Park Heights neighborhood, because there's also a number of other projects planned for the neighborhood. And so that may work. But they were getting a lot of pushback from trainers about the idea of housing people in the neighborhoods wherever a training center ends up. And right now there are 3 candidates for it. And, Ferris Allen, who's a trainer here, who's on the MTHA board, pointed out, he said, look, a lot of these guys, they're not mobile. They don't drive, so they're on foot or they're on bicycle. They can't go very far. And the answer at this point is housing at the training center isn't contemplated because there isn't money for it.
Again, obstacles to overcome. Now, another thing, if you go to a one-track circuit, and it's happened, we've seen it in Florida, it's happened a few places. When I was, as I say, I've been around the game now for a while, and a lot of these major venues had the 3-track circuit or more, which I think was optimum because it refreshes the fans, but it also lets the surfaces refresh. And so if you're with the one facility and that's your main play, it's tough to go year round. And particularly, as you say, with the turf course that's not going to have much alternative as far as the lanes to run. So what's the game plan going to be for the schedule? And another question I had, Timonium, I think, is still in the mix, right? But they just have the little short meet.
Yeah, so to answer your second question first, Timonium is a separate thing. It's owned by a separate entity. And, they are statutorily entitled to 10 days and they race 7. And I think that's probably going to continue, at least for the time being. I mean, who knows what the future holds, but, there's no talk about ending Timonium. So presumably Timonium continues its little 7-day meet. In terms of the meet at Pimlico, the horsemen here believe they need at least 130 to 140 days a year. So, and right now if you include Timonium, we're going to end up around 170 last year and 160 to 170 this year. So, it may be that we, have a little fewer days. Alan Foreman has talked about this a lot. He thinks that's something that kind of is inevitable and probably is, given shrinking horse populations. So how you divvy those up, I'm not sure. I mean, there's some talk that maybe you shut down and, in the summer when you've got Colonial and they're going to have an expanding meet in Delaware and Monmouth and everybody else. And so maybe you just go dark then. I don't know, but you raise a really good point too. And we saw this at Churchill Downs just this past year when their track went sideways. They were able to move to, I think it was Ellis Park for some of their days while they tried to figure out what was wrong with their surface. If you only have one track, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and my other question is, I was going to say glossed over. That's not the right word, but it's to me, it's surprising that it seems like, and from everything I read and everybody is saying, the Stronach Group is on board with this, which I find, it's a complete 180-degree business model that's going to kind of take things away from them. But if you look at the broader picture and whatnot, they get to develop, which I guess is an attractive property. They'll get to develop Laurel. So maybe in the long run, financially, it just makes great sense to them to kind of step back. And so how does that work with Stronach? And also tie into that, they're going to hold on to what I guess licensing rights would be the right word for the Preakness?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, you touched on this. I mean, at first blush, you kind of say, gee, I don't know, that's kind of weird. Yeah. But if you dig a little deeper, it's actually really, I think, shrewd as a business move for them. So they're going to, the current plan is they're going to just donate Pimlico to this new arrangement to, let them develop it however. They retain Laurel. They'll be able to develop that. Now, there are challenges with Laurel because of wetlands and stuff, but they own, I want to say it's close to 300 acres there. 300 undeveloped acres in the middle of suburban, the suburban Baltimore, Washington sprawl. They're sitting on some money there, like tens of millions of dollars of value there. If you looked at their numbers over the last 10 years, they're losing money owning racing. They lost around $95 million owning day-to-day racing over the last decade. And in the last 2 years, they've lost money on the Preakness. So they're losing money pretty aggressively. They're losing a lot of money doing this. Under this arrangement, they'll still own Laurel. The new nonprofit's going to have to lease back Laurel, I believe, to run racing while Pimlico is closed for a couple of years, getting redeveloped. So they'll make money just leasing this back to this nonprofit, and they're going to retain the ownership of the Preakness, and they'll license it to the nonprofit. That's not going to come free. So they kind of, they go from this model where they're losing a lot of money as operators of racetracks, and now they're essentially going to go to a model where they're making money as landlords and property holders.
Yeah, that's kind of how I parsed it out when I thought, that's interesting and strange, but then you start to think about it, okay. And finally, just again, we're talking about this plan. It is a plan. It's a proposal. So as far as Maryland racing, essentially, what's next for this plan?
Well, so in terms of racing, we have an agreement for the rest of this year. Racing should be, continue sort of status quo here in Maryland for 2024. On January 1, 2025, the nonprofit group is supposed to take over day-to-day racing from the Stronach group. So what has to happen kind of immediately, and I touched on this on the article on the racingbiz.com, legislation, there's going to have to be what Alan Foreman called to me remedial legislation to kind of fix up some things in the old Racing and Community Development Act that will enable some of the funding to flow in the ways it needs to flow for this project. So you got to get legislation passed in this session. You got to create a nonprofit group. You have to come to an agreement with the Stronachs on the turnover of day-to-day racing. You're going to have to come to an agreement with the Stronachs on the Preakness starting in 2025. You're going to have to create this nonprofit. You're going to have to staff this nonprofit. You're going to have to develop your actual plan for Pimlico. You're going to have to identify a new training center and begin the work of acquiring that property and then redeveloping that property. So you got a whole lot of things that you have to do, and you got to do them pretty quickly. Not a lot of time.
Yeah, again, as I said, Maryland, a linchpin of American racing for the whole time. I've been a fan, and far, far beyond that going back. And so, again, I've said this a number of times over the past 5 years or so. My fingers are crossed for Maryland racing, and I hope things work out. We'll keep watching, and we'll keep checking the racingbiz.com, Frank, because, again, you do great coverage down there. But I wanted to touch on another thing before we let you go today. I found it interesting. We would have talked about it anyway, but today it's especially interesting because Oaklawn is on the sidelines today. So here on the network this afternoon, we're going to pull in a little Laurel racing, and maybe this will help us get some value and some winners. You had a nice article where you looked at currently at the meet, some of the jockeys and trainers who are exceeding expectations. Before I get to those kind of trainers, a jockey who lived up to, or a trainer who lived up to expectations. Talk a little bit about the end of the year, little battle between Brittany Russell and Jamie Ness, and Brittany Russell winds up to be the first female trainer to lead trainers all year long down in Maryland. So that was a fun little story to end 2023. Came right down to the wire.
Yeah, it came down to the wire. I mean, Brittany is just, it's been a remarkable rise for her. I mean, I remember, when she won her first race, and then talking to her when she won her first stakes race. And, what she's been able to do really successfully is get a lot of really good owners, including getting kind of the, B or C team from Rapoli and some of those people. And, those horses look just fine in Maryland. They may not look great in New York or Churchill Downs, depending on who the owner is, but they look just fine in Maryland. And so she's definitely, just an up and comer. I mean, she's already here and she's still an up and comer, I think. And, keep an eye on her. I think you're going to be seeing more of her in New York in the years to come as well. A really kind of meteoric rise over the last few years for her.
Yeah, it was like 2 autumns ago, where she had that 50% rate and was kind of hitting everybody's radar, and then clearly hit the radar of, as you say, some prominent owners that she is now attached to as well. But as I say, you did a nice little article. So let's focus first on the jockeys. And again, when we start, just give me the concept of the article. Jockeys and trainers who are exceeding expectations. And on the jockey side of things, I pulled up a picture. 2 of the ones that are maybe offering a little bit more value, both female jockeys. And I will let you correct me, but Thais Lepestina is at the top of the list, as well as Forrest Boyce, who I'm a little more familiar with. But we have a shot of those 2 there. So again, talk a little bit about the concept and the jockey side of things as far as exceeding expectations so far.
Well, the genesis of it was, people always go, oh, this jockey or this trainer's won a lot of races or won this much money or this win percentage. And as somebody who wants to really understand racing, that doesn't tell me anything of value. I could put basically a bag of potatoes on some of these horses and win races. or on some other horses and lose races. There's nothing you can do. And so I started saying, well, what if we started looking at like how they're doing vis-a-vis the quality of animals that they're sending out and the spots they're putting them in. So what we've done is looked at the jockeys and the trainers and kind of adjusted the odds of their horses for the takeout. So it's actually reflecting how they're being bet, leaving aside the takeout, removing the takeout. So we understand that, a horse that gets 20% of the actual betting is going to go off at lesser odds than that would imply. So we're going to the untaken out odds and then looking at how they're performing vis-a-vis how they should be based on their odds. And what's interesting, like you mentioned Thais Pistina, you mentioned Forrest Boyce, like Forrest in particular, since I started doing this just a couple of months ago, she has consistently been outperforming her odds. And she had I think $100 winner the other day. And obviously that's nothing you can look at. It's nothing you can count on, but it just kind of goes to, she just sort of consistently gets run out of her horses, puts them in good spots, and is winning more often than you would expect based on the odds of her horses, which obviously makes her an attractive proposition as a bettor.
And again, the article, you have charts there, jockey chart, and listing many more names as well, so people can check that out. And over on the trainer side of things, I pulled up photos from the top two on the list, Lacey Gaudette and Carlos Mancilla, but Kerry Brion is on there as well. Talk a little bit about the trainer side.
Yeah, no, and we use the exact same sort of premise for looking at the trainers. And I mean, Lacey Gaudette has been on just a ridiculous heater. I mean, I think she's won, coming into this weekend, she had won 12 of her last 25 in Maryland. And I think she's won another one or two more this weekend. And Carlos Mancilla, same thing. He's been winning a lot. And, the thing with Mancilla in particular, his horses don't get bet usually. And so when he goes on a run, I think he was 9 for 25 coming into the weekend. When he goes on a run like that, if you happen to hitch on him, you're going to get paid because his horses don't, Lacey's horses will get bet a little bit. Carlos's won't at all. So, again, it makes them, I'm trying to look at this like, who's an attractive betting proposition? Yeah. And like somebody like we were talking about Brittany, she wins a lot, but she also gets bet like she should win a lot. Yeah. So, may not be as bettable as somebody like Lacey or Carlos in a given moment. Now, obviously this can change based on streaks and whatnot, because I do it kind of based on the last 50 starts for a jockey and the last 25 for a trainer. And so, somebody wins a few in a row and all of a sudden the picture changes. But what you will sort of consistently see is a trainer like Carlos Mancilla probably won't get bet much. A trainer like Brittany will, Jamie Ness will. Lacey won't get bet like they will, but she'll get bet a little bit more than a Carlos Mancilla will. And so you kind of track these things over time, and you start to get a sense of where's value going to appear.
Yeah, I love the concept. And again, I'll tell people to go over to theracingbiz.com and pull up the article and look at the two charts. And we have little Laurel on this afternoon, and it may help you sniff out a little bit of value. If not on top, maybe something underneath in an exactor or whatnot. As I say, I think the concept is a lot of fun. Frank, always appreciate the visit and the conversation, and you do a great job with the Racing Biz. Again, we tell people to go visit that, and we will talk again in the future.
Always appreciate the time, Seth, and good luck today at the windows.
Appreciate it. Frank Vespe, again, theracingbiz.com. As I say, I thought we'd get him in to talk a little bit about the Maryland picture. And truly, my fingers are crossed there because Maryland is an important part of the American racing scene. And I certainly hope it seemed like we were saying that seriously a few years ago. And then we got to the point where, Maryland's in a pretty good spot. Now they're back in a little bit of a jam again. So we hope things are going to work out here over the next few months and next year as far as maybe getting onto a new path that has hopefully a bright future for things down in Maryland. All right, we'll take we'll actually wind up. I was going to say take a break. We'll take a long break until I come back in just about an hour, so a little less than an hour for OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. But we'll wrap up Racing Across America. Again, if you weren't tuned in earlier, Oaklawn canceled yesterday for today. They knew they were going to have a little weather overnight that may lead into freezing surface, so they had canceled racing for today at Oaklawn. And as I said a moment ago, because of that, we'll put a little Laurel into our mix on the network here this afternoon. But I'm going to take a look at some Tampa, some Aqueduct, and some Gulfstream as well. And as I say, just about an hour or so for OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. So should be fun. Looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. Before I wind up, let me remind you of some of the promos coming up here one more time. Again, Martin Luther King Day tomorrow. That means a couple of tracks that you wouldn't normally see will be in action. Santa Anita and Fairgrounds on the holiday tomorrow. So keep that in mind for tomorrow, Monday, Martin Luther King Day. Wednesday, 1% Florida bonus day all month long on Wednesdays. If you play either or both, Gulfstream and Tampa reach the minimums and whatnot. If you're a player rewards member, you wind up a little extra on Wednesdays throughout January. Florida Track bonus days coming up this Friday here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Double promo day. It's a match bet promotion and the Exacta board. Both of those for some extra fun coming up on Friday this week. And on Saturday, it's the $100 Trifecta Challenge again, right here, Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Thanks for joining us. Back again in about an hour or so for OTB Live. We'll see you then. We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.